Hey everyone, welcome to Your Enneagram Coach, the podcast. And just to let you know, we're also on YouTube, so head over to Your Enneagram Coach channel and subscribe and like this video. Today we've got a really special guest, and I'm so thrilled to continue our conversation about Enneagram Internal Profile, which is in our new book, More Than Your Number. And we're going to talk with Adam Young, who is also an incredible friend, and he also has his own incredible podcast. We're going to dive into all of that, but also we're going to dive into his main type, which is the type 8, and hear from him how EIP has affected him and understanding the different parts that are operating within him.
So if you're hearing about EIP for the first time and don't have any clue what we're talking about, be sure to go check out episode 112 and you'll be able to get a grasp, an overview of EIP. And then don't forget to go get the book, More Than Your Number. You can buy anywhere books are sold, where we explain this new approach to the Enneagram and how it helps us move from simply observation to actually self-leadership and to attend to these various parts of our hearts. If you want to hear an overview of the type 8's EIP, you can go to episode 113 where we do a deep dive, and in episode 114 we have a whole panel of 8's as well. So there's a lot of resources for 8's and for those of us who have great relationships with 8's and we want to learn more about them. See, EIP is an approach that helps to bring awareness and clarity to the various parts of our hearts. EIP more easily and clearly helps us to understand the various connecting types of our Enneagram type. So to start, each type has 6 basic EIP parts. The main type, which consists of 2 parts, the misaligned wounded child and the gospel-led beloved child. Your main type also has 4 connecting types, and that makes up the other 4 parts of our EIP. That incorporates both wings, not just one of them, but both of them, and also the 2 paths, the 2 types where the lines are connected to in the Enneagram symbol. Each part can show up in both healthy and unhealthy ways, aligned or misaligned ways, depending upon whether they are advocating for on behalf of the wounded child or the beloved child. When our wounded child is trying to lead, it brings less healthy tendencies, more self-protective and securing tendencies, which can affect our relationships with ourselves, with God, and with others. But when EIP is beneficial, since we can now use this as a way of coming to understand God's role in our life and what the Holy Spirit is inviting us to awaken to, that our beloved child has the opportunity to lead all the various aspects of our internal world. In fact, when our beloved part is leading, we'll see the fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Beth, today we're going to be talking about a type 8. So why don't you give a brief overview of the type 8, and then we'll introduce Adam after that.
Yeah, I'd love to. So type 8s engage life with confident intensity, with strength and a determination to make things happen. They are strong, self-assured, and independent, and they don't want to be harmed by others. But underneath these layers of this external armor is a very tender heart. They desire truly to have someone bigger and stronger than them to protect them and to see and to look out for them. Now, type 8's core motivations is their core fear: being weak, powerless, harmed, controlled, vulnerable, manipulated, and left at the mercy of injustice. But they have a core desire, which is to protect themselves and those in their inner circle. Then they have a core weakness of excess. Now, this is where they're constantly desiring intensity and control and sometimes power, and they push themselves willfully on life and people to get what they want. But they have a core longing, the message their heart longs to hear, which is, you will not be betrayed. Now, when type 8s are struggling, they can be very straightforward and blunt. They can come off being mean and intimidating. They can be very restless and impatient when they think that others are maybe slow or incompetent, and they want to put a lot of pressure on people to make things happen. But at their very best, they embrace generosity and mercy, and they protect others. They provide for ways that others can see that they will not be betrayed, that they come alongside them. But they also can do this because they are being vulnerable in a way towards God, knowing that God is their protector, God is their strength, God is the one that is empowering them. So this allows them to move closer into relationship with others in that vulnerable way. And this is where they're going to balance courage and strength with vulnerability and humility. And this is where you're going to see them plow a path of justice for others with their strength, their resilience, and their tenacity.
Well, that's a great segue to introduce today's guest, who is an Enneagram Type 8. This is Adam Young, a licensed clinical social worker with a master's degree in social work and divinity. He currently serves as a fellow with the Allender Center and is the host of the incredible podcast called The Place We Find Ourselves. Adam, I have been tremendously influenced by your work, and we went through some training together with Dan Allender, and so we share a like-heartedness in understanding our own story. Man, Adam, thank you, first of all, for you starting your podcast. I know that has meant so much to so many different people. But Adam, welcome to the show, and we're so glad that you joined us.
Thanks. It's super fun to be here. It was gut-wrenching but encouraging to listen to Beth describe my heart.
It's so funny. As a type 9, I kind of just get right in there, don't I? And it's like, how can this peaceful, calm person just hit me right at the core?
Adam, I'd like to ask this just to get us started, but as you think about your eightness, which is kind of a funny terminology, a little moniker people use for eights, your eightness. But how do you think your eightness led to you starting your podcast?
I have a deep desire for influence and impact.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was a out-of-work preacher without a pulpit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I learned about this thing called podcasting, and it gave me a pulpit.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's great.
And a very powerful one, which is so helpful.
Yes. And one of the things that I love about your podcast, so having spent a little time together through the Allender trainings, like the same person that showed up as we were going through that training is the same person who shows up on your podcast. You can see the passion. I see the insight and the ruthless. I don't know if ruthless, I don't think that's the good word for it, but just the passionate pursuit of honesty and that it's okay. Like we can go there and be okay. Yeah. And you offer such kindness whenever on your podcast, but also there's clear direction. Mm-hmm. Like you're not just left there on your own. And we've had so many people share how much they really appreciate it.
That's why I love when I describe type 8s, it's very important to me because I think 8s are probably some of the most misunderstood Enneagram type because a lot of people will call them bulldozers, or a bull in a china shop, whatever you want to call it. And I'm like, no, they're a big diesel snowplow like you see up in the north. Their heart is trying to plow a path for others. Now, when they're not healthy, obviously they're going to nick people on the side of the road or even plow over them. And if they're really unhealthy, they're doing it on purpose. But really how God designed them was to plow a path for others. And I think you embody that in such a great way because you see the people who have need out in front of you and you kind of yell up in the front like, hey, get behind me or get on the side of the road and I've got this. And you're kind of plowing a path for others. And then others are like, thank you. Now I can kind of learn about my heart or I can grow or I can heal from trauma and pain. So I would love to hear a little bit more from you on how did you discover you were an 8? And then what has that journey been like in realizing you're 8, both kind of from that misaligned and aligned place?
Mm-hmm. I discovered I was an 8 because somebody started talking about the Enneagram years ago and gave me a book called The Enneagram, A Christian Perspective by Richard Rohr.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And I read it. I took one of those tests, but then I read all the types.
Right.
And when I got to the 8 and it talked about that 8s are incredibly sensitive and gentle and tender, but most people don't experience them that way because they act all tough and in control.
Yeah.
I was like, that feels very core to like my felt experience of being in the world.
Right.
Like there's a disconnect between the vulnerable, tender, sensitive Adam that I know about
Yes.
and how others experience me.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I was just thinking as you were saying that, that's exactly when you read about an 8, usually when people experience that of an 8 is when the 8 is around children or animals. They'll see that tenderness come out.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "Oh," like as if they're surprised because what people typically experience from the type 8 isn't so much, I mean, if they're unhealthy, yeah, it's going to be brash and it's harsh and it's blunt.
Mm-hmm.
But even a healthy 8, they just exude a certain kind of energy of confidence and let's get this done and let's go. And that can be very intimidating for other people. And the 8s are like, wait, I'm intimidating? And everyone else is like,
Right.
yeah, like, how do you not know this? But the 8 doesn't feel that. And
Right.
has that been hard to watch other people's expressions or how they relate to you when you know what your heart's really trying to come across as?
Absolutely, like gut wrenching because, when you get the feedback from enough people, you know that they're telling you the truth. It's
Yeah.
not like one person, and so you have to look at the data, which is, oh, this is how people experience my presence in a room,
Yeah.
Yes.
but it's a sense of being misunderstood
Right.
because it's so interesting you say around children, people see the tenderness of an 8. When you said that, it dawned on me that 8s there's no danger if there's a child because there's a power differential, right?
Yes,
Like I'm
right.
an adult, they're a 7-year-old boy. So I don't feel like I'm not going to be betrayed. I'm not going to be harmed. And so I can be myself,
Yeah.
which is very tender and sensitive
Yeah.
and gentle.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I also talk about how 8s, that sensitivity internally, what I say to people, it's like their heart has had a 3rd-degree burn. And
Yeah.
think about, if your arm has a 3rd-degree burn, you're not just going to be
Yeah.
like out there bumping into things. You're going to protect it. You're going to cover it up. You're going to even probably put some kind of shield around it if you can. And that's really what 8s are doing. Their heart is so tender. And this is what I think is going to surprise people. It's so tender, but it's also been harmed in some form or fashion, whether really big or little harm, that they've put up this external armor, like you said, like, well, when I'm with people and I don't know what I'm going to get, I'm going to come across with this armor, but really what's inside is so tender. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Yes. But other people experience the armor
Right.
and they experience at times their experience is, I am a bulldozer.
Yeah.
Now that's much less true now that I've
Yeah.
matured and grown and healed a lot. But when I was young, like in my 20s, a lot of people experienced me as a bulldozer
Right.
Yes.
or a bull in a china shop. Everyone knows when I enter the room.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like the opposite of a 9, right?
Right.
Like when when you were younger, Beth, my
Yeah.
guess is you're in a room at a party. Somebody says the next day who was at the party, they're going to leave you out.
Oh, totally. Or even now.
Adam, I was like, yeah, that's not in the past.
Yeah, that's
What's that quote? The
It's
past
so
isn't
true.
the past. It's not even past.
Right.
no, yeah, you're totally right. And so yeah, people are experiencing you in a different way than what you experience yourself as. And
Yes.
here's one thing I want people to hear. And I just, it's like my heart, the 9 mediator heart, and then the 8 that wants to plow a path right now for others, wants people to hear, I know that you might experience 8s in a particular way, but I need you to look past that. And the reason why I say that is when I first started reading about the Enneagram, this is back in early 2000s, and I would even, so this is when I haven't done all my work, I'm still doing my work, but hadn't done all the work. Even reading about a type 8 as a type 9, I kind of trembled inside. Like,
Of course.
I don't want to be around these people, But I will be honest, I had the privilege when I got my certification, the Enneagram, of being around several eights that allowed me to see their most authentic and vulnerable
Right.
self. It
Yeah.
blew my mind. It
Right.
shattered the armor of all eights. Now that doesn't mean, of course, I see the armor, I feel the
Hmm.
armor, but I was
Hmm.
able to see the eight in a completely different light. So from then on, when
Hmm.
I see that armor or I feel it, I can have understanding, compassion, and go, you know what? They're feeling either vulnerable, they're feeling harmed, they're feeling manipulated, or they're scared they're going to be, and they're coming a little bit more in a like a brash or blunt
Yeah.
way. But actually, what's going on inside is tenderness. And can
Yeah.
I come alongside in a way that's non threatening and can show them,
Hmm.
hey, I'm with you, I'm for you, and
Hmm.
break down some of that armor so that we can come together in this. And I'll tell you, when I see past the armor and eight see that I'm seeing past it, they are
Yeah.
like disarmed. They're
Oh.
so thankful.
Oh, nothing feels safer
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like,
for an 8.
yeah, it's like I see you and it's okay. I see that
Yep.
you're afraid. I'm not going to harm
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Right.
Well, Adam, why don't we dive into, let's talk about first, we're going to go through the two parts of our main type, the wounded and beloved child. And so we're going to start with the wounded child. Now, the wounded child is the part of our main type that is carries the impact of trauma and tragedy, living in both the sinful and fallen world. It's the vulnerable and tender parts of our heart. It reacts from a history of painful experiences and has a primal need to protect itself from more harm. For eights, as children, they long to hear and experience that they will not be betrayed. But the type 8 grew up seeing the world is an aggressive and antagonistic place, and only those who are strong, tough, and smart will survive. They saw how the weak, the innocent, and vulnerable were taken advantage of, hurt, or betrayed. They didn't want to be one of these vulnerable people, so they decided to protect their hearts with a strong external armor, which is what Beth's been alluding to. But internally, the type 8's heart is soft and tender, and if it's exposed or taken advantage of, it would be devastating to them, so they feel they must wear protective armor for survival. Their wounded child part falsely believes that it's not okay to trust anyone. It longs for someone more powerful to protect and care for them so they
Hmm.
can let go of the armor and the weight of protecting everyone that means so much to them. So as an adult, the core longing remains the same, to hear that they will not be betrayed. You know, it is interesting, Beth. We've had some conversations lately about the wounded, our own sense of wounded and experience of wounded child, that we were even talking like the wounded part of ourselves sometimes doesn't even see one another
Yeah.
because they're so alone
Yeah.
and they see the world. They're so fixated on that world. They're very young. They're very scared. And they don't see the resources that we have around us now, that things are different now. Well, Adam, tell us for yourself, how do you experience this part of your wounded child?
Well, and just real quickly, the wounded child also, what we have to realize is that it has positive intent, but it's this little child that doesn't
Right.
understand the world, doesn't understand what's going on. And so it's trying to protect us, it's trying to help us, but it just doesn't have the resources to know how. So,
That's right.
yeah. So, Adam, tell us a little bit more about, your wounded child part and how it shows up, whether in the past or the present. Just really
Sure.
love to hear from an eight.
Well, one story that comes to mind is when I was in middle school, I developed late and didn't have a lot of hair on my legs, and a rumor started that I shaved my legs.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And, there were some ringleaders of it, but it went around the whole school, and they would mock me at school, and it was utterly like for an 8,
Mm-hmm.
the humiliation of that and the powerlessness of that, it overwhelmed me.
Mm.
Um, but that actually wasn't the worst part of it. The worst part was there were no adults in my world. There was no one stronger than me to protect, to intervene, to care for me, to help me figure out how to deal with this. No guidance counselor, mom and dad wouldn't get involved, no teachers, nobody would come to my aid. I had no advocate, I had no help.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was utterly alone in that powerlessness and in that humiliation. And when Jeff talks about the wounded child, the wounded part of an 8, that's a story that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, it's interesting to hear you use the word humiliation. Does sometimes being exposed or feeling vulnerability, does that come across? I remember talking with the theologian Jerome Bars, and we were talking. I was sharing the gospel with at St. Louis University and with some to-be seminary students within the Jesuit tradition or the Catholic Church, and I just felt like I had no clue what I was doing. They had all kinds of questions that I didn't know how to answer, and I said, "Hey, Jerome, when you were with Labrie, what was it like when people asked you questions that you didn't know?" And he wanted to say, you get humiliated, but then he said, humbled. How do you experience the difference between humility and humiliation as a type 8?
Well, humility is just an honest appraisal of what's true about you, about the world. And so humiliation for me in this story is when you're being mocked and ridiculed and there's contempt. And especially for me, like I'm a boy becoming a man and they're saying I'm a girl,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Like there's immense humiliation in that. And that was their intent. I mean,
Yeah.
when there's middle school mockery, when there's bullying, the intent of bullying is humiliation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you see echoes of that in adulthood now, where at times it's difficult to differentiate between the two?
No, I don't have.
Okay.
I don't have difficulty differentiating between humility and humiliation. I do, as an adult, feel humiliation when I think others probably would not
Oh, interesting.
because of my story.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And excuse me. And the wounded child, like this, let's say this story of humiliation, do you find that part of your heart, that wounded child, thinks it might still be happening today and tries to use the same tactics that maybe it
Yes.
used before? What would
Yes.
would be some typical tactics that it tries to use to protect you?
Do not ever get in a powerless situation. So scan the horizon, like a hypervigilance for whatever's going on in my world, coworkers, family, friends, whatever. Always looking for where might power be taken, where might I be rendered powerless?
Yeah.
Yes.
Where might I be betrayed? Where might I be mocked or humiliated? And then do whatever I have to do to avoid that.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what's so great about it is the language you used is so closely related to 6s. And I kind of just want to point that out.
Yeah. I immediately had the same thought.
But
that
it's
I am
different.
always my what intention or inclination is to I feel the powerlessness before I'm in the situation, but then I start to create alliances to overcome the powerlessness.
Right. And an 8's not going to, I mean, not that an 8 would not create alliances, but the 8's mindset is, especially the wounded child, is you cannot trust anyone. Whereas the 6,
That's right.
the 6's mindset is you cannot trust yourself. That's the complete opposite of what an 8 is thinking. The 8 is like, yeah, there might be some good, decent people here, but I'm not sure yet, so I'm going to trust myself. Whereas the 6 is like, I don't trust myself. Where are my alliances? Where are my people? And how can I garner them? How can I bring them into the fold to know that I'm safe and secure? So I just wanted to point that out because the scanning the horizon is such a 6 thing. If people are hearing that. But what I want everyone to hear is that we do the similar things, but for our types reasons. So you're scanning
Yes.
the horizon to make sure you're not betrayed or harmed. Now,
That's we could walk the wheel on hypervigilance
Right.
for each type.
oh yeah, and I'm hypervigilant in our relationship. I'm scanning the horizon of what could make you sad, upset, not
I have
happy.
no idea what you're talking about, Bethy. I've never experienced
Never
you that
experienced
way.
that. And it's because I'm fearful of losing connection
Yes.
or conflict or tension of any kind. I would just want you happy. And so I just think that's a really key thing. So let's dive into the beloved child, because I'd love to hear how God has enabled you to grow in such a way that has helped you to have self-leadership and compassion for the wounded child and to navigate it when it does pop up and wants to protect you and be vigilant. So let me just kind of rephrase or like refresh everyone's memory on the beloved child. So it's the part of our heart that knows who we are and whose we are. It knows that its core longing has been satisfied by Christ. And this is the spirit-led self. And it understands that its relationship with God is all satisfying, joyous, and it overflows into their lives and with others. So the type 8's beloved child knows that they are weak and finite, but they know that God is strong, protective, and has completely accomplished what he set out to, which was our salvation. Now, the beloved child also knows that Christ will neither betray nor forsake them, and that he is their true advocate that they can trust in, and that Christ will not stop protecting and providing, and that his love is so intense and focused on them that the beloved child can fully rest and surrender in his strength, which still means that they're powerful and they're incredible at what they do, but it's from a totally different place in their heart. So the beloved child might say to itself, to yourself, Christ will never betray or forsake me. I have a true advocate in whom I can trust, and I can rest in his leadership. And because of this, I can extend to others the same love, tenderness, protection, and justice that I have received from Christ. So Adam, can you just walk us through what does it look like when the beloved child shows up in your life and leads you from that Holy Spirit, spirit-led self, and also coaches, mentors, leads, whatever you want to call it, that wounded child back into alignment?
Sure. This is a complex topic
I'm sure.
because the Bible's full of people expressing to God that God has betrayed them and forsaken them.
Yeah.
Yes.
The psalmists do it all the time. Job does it. Jonah does it. Elijah, Jeremiah especially, felt deeply betrayed by God. And what they did with that, and I would say from the best part of themselves,
Yes.
was they would dialogically express that feeling of betrayal to God. They'd stay in conversation with their God and express candidly their felt experience of God's betrayal.
Yeah.
The same has been true for me. I mean, in my opinion, the only way you can come to know that God will not betray you is by candidly and uneditedly expressing to God when you are feeling betrayed by God.
Right.
Because the betrayals happen east of Eden. Like, I have been betrayed. That's not just my type's hypervigilance.
Yes.
Seeing something that's not there. Betrayal happens in this world. And so there's no, when I'm living out of the beloved child, that doesn't mean I'm never going to be betrayed by people. God is not going to betray me, but my felt experience at times will be that why did you let that thing happen?
Exactly. Yeah.
Why did you not intervene there? And so I think to live out of this part that you're talking about, Beth, this beloved child, the only way to get there, in my experience, is to have a very candid, psalmic, rich, robust dialogue with God about my true feelings of abandonment and betrayal.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that's so key for not just 8s to hear. I think it's key for 8s to hear, but I think it's key for all types to hear, because I would say in our Christian culture, not the Bible, in our Christian culture, it says, oh no, you can't do that. You can't be
Right.
You can't be honest with your doubts, your fears, your
Right.
frustrations, your anger about your experiences, and even how you feel that God may have betrayed you, forsaken you, or left you, or didn't provide for you. Like, that is a no-no. That means you're not faithful. You're not a Christian. You
That's
don't
right.
love God. You don't believe in what he has done. And so I
That's
think it's
right.
important for all of us to know God knows what's going on in your heart better than you know. And so if we're not candid and honest, we're really just deceiving ourselves. We're not deceiving him.
Right.
We're not like
Right.
tricking him like, oh, I'm a much better Christian, like, because I'm not saying it. No, I agree. The more honest we are, the more we're actually to sit in the present moment of God and feel his love and embrace, even knowing that we're broken, even though we know that we doubt or we struggle. And that's why Romans 5:8 is so incredible. While we were still sinners, Christ came for us. It wasn't like, oh, let's wait till they fix themselves up a little bit, or they have a little bit more faith, or they trust me more. No, he knew we couldn't do any of it. And he knew we were broken. So I love that. That's such a great way for an 8 to lead us, all of us, is to say, no, you must be honest. No editing here for you to have a true and honest relationship with the Lord, which will spill out with others.
Adam, you do a lot. You put a lot of emphasis on story work. I was recently doing some reading in a recovery book. It's in the ACA recovery genre of books, and it's Becoming Your Own Loving Parent. And what was interesting, they said that if you approach with their terminology, your inner child, from the place or self of the inner child, you're going to get spun out doing your own story work. But if you approach it from your own loving parent, that you're differentiated in some sense and are able to engage with your story differently. When you think about this idea of the beloved self engaging with this memory of middle school, what thoughts do you have about learning how to lead ourselves, but from the place of the beloved self?
To the degree that, let me preface this by saying this. We have parts to ourselves.
Yes.
Lots of them. And then, in addition, there is an Adam that is not a part. When that Adam approaches that 7th grader, that wounded part who's humiliated and powerless, and listens to him, listens to that 7th grader, that is very holy. It's also what you're calling self-leadership. It's a way of being with a very wounded part of me and providing attention, care, engagement. It's powerful and it's healing.
Yes.
And it could be summed up in this phrase: I'm bearing witness to that part's agony.
Yes. Now, I'm going to ask one more follow-up. Stinky Pete. I think I lost it. No, I found it. Sorry. One of the things that I've been wrestling with in my own experience is Beth can sometimes show up for that wounded part of my heart. But it is altogether something different when I show up for that part.
Yes.
Like there's an element of comfort that she can have, but then, and I even find that sometimes in my spiritual life, like I've studied not the Bible, like I know the concepts to be true. I know the passages that are there, but there's sometimes a disconnect between what I'm experiencing and what I believe to be true, where it's almost like God's like, hey, this is true. Now you're just going to have to shepherd your own heart with this truth in some sense. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like other people bearing witness, but why the importance of ourselves bearing witness to this wounded part?
I can talk about it, but it's a mystery. In other words, mysteries are not unexplainable. Mysteries are things that are endlessly explainable. In other words, we can't ever come to the end of words explaining it. What you're talking about is so holy. In neuroscience terms, it's integration. In other words, these parts of us are neurons.
Sure.
Neurons that are connected to other neurons, and we've got billions of them. There is a 7th grade wounded, humiliated part of Adam that is a lot of neurons that exists in a particular region of my brain that I tend to stay away from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I approach that 7th grader in that particular hallway where it would happen at East Ridge Middle School, and I say to him, "What do you need me to know about you and your world?" All of a sudden, he feels a safety and a care and a presence of somebody stronger than him, which is what he never had
Right.
Yes.
in real life. And if I avoid him, which is what most of us do for
Oh,
most
sure.
of our lives, he's stuck in that place of, I have no advocate, I'm utterly alone, and he's fueling that wounded child in me as an adult because he knows that there is no one.
Yeah.
But
Right.
when I come to him, that gives him a different experience of the world.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
That is very healing.
Yes.
and so what I was going to say, actually, this is a better time for it, was what we just experienced reading the book. So for me,
Yeah. Yeah. You're exactly right.
so just for Adam and everyone else to know, so I grew up with a pretty severe reading disability, not dyslexia that we know, but just a very slow reader, slow at learning to read. So when I was in the 8th grade, I was reading at the 4th grade level. And so it took a long time to just catch up. And I'm still a very slow reader. And we got new glasses that actually have really helped. They're called neuro lenses. They are prisms that actually make my eyes work together, not fighting each other, which if you are trying to read and your eyes aren't looking at the same thing, it doesn't translate into your brain as well. Well, reading out loud was probably one of my greatest fears growing up.
Right.
And
Very intrusive memories of reading out loud in school growing
yeah,
up.
little Bethy, the wounded child in my heart, is like, we are not doing that. And so whenever I read out loud, you know, like if you're in your group, you're like, okay, there's 5 people ahead of me, count out, you know, the 5 paragraphs. And then I'm like trying to read as much as I
Yes.
can to prepare because I'm so afraid to be exposed that I'm incompetent in this area.
Yes.
So fast forward, doing a lot of inner work, understanding my wounded child and then the beloved child coming in. We attempted reading the book before I knew all of this.
This
the
was our first book, Becoming Us.
a couple
That's right.
years ago. And it took me 1 hour to get 5 minutes accomplished.
Right.
And you know what I'm talking about. It to get it just right. And we were like, okay, yeah, this isn't going
And
to
that
happen.
devastated you for a day. Maybe not, if not days.
The wounded child part of my heart was just, see, I told you. I told
Yes.
you we can't do this. Why did
That's
you put me in that position? So it was like there was no one there once again to advocate for me.
Yes.
But
That's right.
I've been doing all this work and got the glasses. I'm seeing a lot of progress. It's not perfect. You know, I don't read like Jeff and the rest of my team, but a lot of progress. So I was like, I want to do it. I want to try. I think I can do it this time.
It was a totally new energy. Like
New
it was,
energy.
I'm going to walk into this very difficult place.
But I knew that I had that Coach Beth, which is what I call my beloved child. I knew Coach Beth had to meet with little Bethy and ask her the same thing. Like,
That's right.
What are you afraid of? What can I do to help?
That's right.
And she was like, I'm afraid of experiencing that I'm there and it's going to take me forever to get through this and that maybe I can't even do it. And I was like, and, you know, just walking her through like, well, what if you can't? It's okay. We can get someone to read the book. Like, that's okay, but wouldn't it be worth to try? And, you know, she's kind of like, no. And I'm like,
Right.
but I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there. You don't have to worry. I'm going to read the book. I'm going to coach us through. And I'll be honest, the first day, it was 2 days of reading. Jeff and I were tag teaming because of the book. We're written together. The first day, it felt like a WWE wrestling match internally. Like all my parts are just swinging each other around, body slamming, you know, like kind of that I told you so. But Coach Beth kept showing up time and time again to say, guys, I know this is hard. I know we keep messing up, but the engineer is super kind, super patient. We're getting through this. It's going to take time, but it's okay. Then the second day, by God's grace, it was a lot easier.
It's a lot easier.
And we got through it. And Coach Beth was able to celebrate with little Bethy. I know that was so, so hard and so scary. but we did it. And do you see that we can do hard things in life? And it's not necessarily always fun, but it's good.
It is interesting, my experience of you. There were still a lot of fears, a lot of sadness.
Yes. A lot of tears the first night.
That's right.
I was up for 2 hours.
But
My parts were like, do we really have to go back? Do we have to go back? Yes.
But there was it was an entirely different experience of sorrow, of hurt. Even the shame seemed different that you were experiencing, and it was even as your husband, as much encouragement that I was able to offer and options. Little Bethy wasn't really having any of it. It really was.
Yeah, she's convinced you don't understand. you don't. Of course you're going to say that, Jeff. You're my husband. She's like writing you off,
What were you going to say, Adam?
What I was going to say is that what little Bethy needs from Jeff is not encouragement. She needs him to amplify her shame.
Mm-hmm.
She needs him to because that's what you're doing, Beth, in yourself when you approach her. You're listening to her shame and saying, "Tell me more."
Yeah. And actually,
what was it like for you?
That was actually what you did the first night, because I came home and I knew I needed to cry because all my parts were just so exhausted. And you just sat next to me and you allowed me just to express all that I was feeling. You weren't trying to correct. You weren't trying to
Most of it was simply reflecting back all the beliefs of little Bethy.
Yeah. You were like, yeah, you're right. This is really hard, and
yes.
And it was just a safe place to be honest, like you were saying earlier, just to be honest with the frustration, the hurt, what I've experienced, and that it's still really hard, even though I've done all this work with classes and I read, so much right now, but that it's worth it. And that really meant so much to little Bethy that I think maybe that's, all of it is why the second day was so much more manageable.
Well, this is great because that this is probably the most personal that we've shared about our own processes relating to beloved and wounded. So thanks, Adam. You're just doing what you do, just show up and people
Plowing
start diving in. Well,
Well,
why don't we talk about the connecting types now? So we're going to talk about wings, okay? So for the type 8, the wings are 7 and 9. The type 7 part is excitable, spontaneous, distracted, impatient, and more social and outgoing. It anticipates future events as exciting, fun possibilities that you can't miss out on. The other thing about the 5 wing is that...
7 wing?
Or the 7 wing, yeah, sorry about that, is that it's trying to protect, it can try to protect our wounded child by focusing our attention on gaining power and control, becoming more impatient, demanding, impulsive, and lack compassion and for how others are feeling. But when the wing 7 part trusts the beloved child's leadership, it no longer needs the unhealthy strategies to protect the wounded child. So from this place of trust and rest, the type 8 may notice that they're more joyful, spontaneous, playful, capable of making the impossible possible. They radiate possibilities and grace that inspires others. So Adam, how do you see your type 7 wing show up in your life?
Well, the misaligned type 7 wing is when I'm demanding in my marriage and I approach Caroline with a posture of, this is what I need. If you cared about me, you would care about this, etc. And even though, like, I'm a deeply empathetic man, I will, when I'm misaligned with that 7, I'll engage her without any thought of how might my energy be affecting her right now. It's like that part of me, that gifting, when I'm misaligned with that 7 wing, it just goes offline.
You're right.
I don't have a thought about how am I affecting Caroline? What's this like for Caroline? It's just demanding.
And just to let people understand, so the 8, their core weakness is lust and excess, and the 7 is gluttony. So you put those two together in a misaligned way, they don't care what everyone else is thinking or feeling. Like, we want what we want, and we want it right now.
Yes.
Adam, when do you see the 7 wings show up for you in healthy ways?
Oh, I can be so playful, like in a childlike wonder sort of way. Like the
Mhm.
other night, I gathered, my kids were whining and bored, and so I gathered them together. I'm like, hey, let's play sorry,
Mhm.
except we're gonna invent some new rules.
Ooh.
And there's a new version of sorry now than when we were kids. They have these things called like fire and ice. So if you get these things, like ice means nobody can sorry you, and fire means that if you get in the home thing, another piece gets to be put in the home thing. So I created two more like new rules,
Yeah.
Fun.
you know, in addition to fire and ice, and to make it more fun.
Yeah.
And like that's my aligned 7 wing
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Spontaneous, fun.
Spontaneous.
Yes.
Yes.
Whimsical. Yeah.
That's right.
Love that. Well, let's go to the better part of you, which is the type 9. No, I was kidding. But
That's
so
great.
when a type 9, they're compassionate and they're kind. They can have this quiet strength and steadfastness and tender leadership. Really that helps encourage others to excel in their strengths. Now, when the wounded child part of you is trying to protect yourself, the type 9 wounded child part can be withdrawn, trying to over accommodate others, people please, avoid conflict and tension. It can also suppress your feelings of anger and irritation, kind of in hopes that maybe it won't disrupt anything. But of course, it's going to come out. And a lot of times it comes out when we're not even focusing on it. Like, especially as us 9s, we're like, what? I'm doing that. So it's kind of like we're just aloof to how we're affecting others. But when the beloved child part is in the lead, then the type 9 part can bring so many great aspects, like recognizing that others need kindness and empathy, compassion, and tenderness as much as the type 8 strength. And then the type 8 is able to be patient, understanding, gracious, and able to express their opinions, but in a way that harmonizes, a way that mediates and brings gentle leadership. So, Adam, how does the type 9 part of your heart show up both in misaligned and aligned ways?
For misaligned, I will often edit my feelings of anger at Caroline. I won't express it. I'll censor it because I don't want to cause conflict.
Yes.
But then the anger builds and builds, and it will come out months later with all my 8 energy.
Right. I don't.
Right?
Jeff
Which is
Jeff
not
doesn't know what
helpful.
you're talking about. Nines are the volcanoes on the Enneagram. So
Yeah.
we have the anger deep down, but then every once in a blue moon it erupts, and when it erupts,
Beth calls her
Watch out.
8-wing Regina, and when I sense it, even whenever she's brooding, and I can feel the energy before it's ever been expressed, I'm like,
Right.
hey, Regina's in the room.
yes. So yeah. So anyway, so you try to tamp it down or censor yourself, and then it just
Yeah.
comes. Yeah.
Yeah. For when I'm aligned with the 9, so I'm a therapist. I do a lot of engaging of people's stories, and when I'm aligned with my 9, I can lead with my tenderness
Yeah.
in my work with people instead of leading with my strength.
Yeah.
And that's a very different felt experience for the other person. It's very easy for me to name stuff in people's stories, to confront people about truth in a helpful and in a kind way. But that's different than leading with my tenderness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I'm aligned with that 9 part of me, which is scary for me to do. But when I do it, it can be more powerful than my strength, which is a stunning sentence
Yes.
for an 8.
Yes.
Well, Adam, one thing that comes to mind, and maybe you can speak to this, what comes to mind whenever I think about wings, oftentimes we experience ambivalence in regards to our wings because they're inviting us sometimes to something that's different. So 8s may having anger, but then having a 9 part that wants to mitigate anger. An 8 who doesn't want to be vulnerable, but
Yep.
a 9 part that wants to offer tenderness to clients, which
Yes.
means entering into vulnerability.
That's right.
Can you speak to ambivalence as you understand it to help people understand? Because sometimes Beth will look at me like, you're using that term again, and I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about,
Oh,
but it's a key Allender concept, and so that's why I bring it up.
it's a key life concept. Look, if you want to be a functioning human being, you need to understand ambivalence. Ambivalence is feeling two contradictory emotions at the same time. In other words, I am drawn to Jeff and I am suspicious of Jeff. I am wanting to be closer to Beth and I am wanting to move away from Beth because I'm afraid. That's ambivalence.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody who's experienced trauma at any level wrestles with ambivalence
Yeah.
because in trauma, you a classic example is sexual abuse. If you have a history of sexual abuse, you know the experience of terror and pleasure in the same exact moment.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, and I remember we've actually gotten some comments, I think, from a previous podcast on that. But there is, when you talk about pleasure, can you define that just a little bit more of what you mean by that?
Well, in the context of sexual abuse, just genital pleasure or a back rub. I mean, we are people that need touch, and we're
Yes.
also sexual beings. And so, if you're a 7-year-old girl and your grandfather is molesting you, because of how God designed the human body, you are going to feel pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
You'll also feel disgust and terror.
Right.
Yeah.
But but here's the bottom line. You can deal with the disgust and terror. It's the pleasure that haunts you
Right.
Yeah.
when you're 40 years
And
old.
it's not pleasure as in I enjoy. Like, I mean, I understand what you're saying is in like the body just naturally says that feels good. At the same time, it's not like pleasure you're seeking after. It's not the right kind of pleasure. It's the opposite. So I just know that there'll
Right.
probably be people out there that are like, what? You know, and it's like, no, we're not insinuating at all. But I think it is the right point that physiologically how we're made, God created us with the right person to enjoy that kind of touch. And this is an
Yeah.
invasion of that.
Yeah, and you can, I mean, just in if you're married, but if you're not married, if you're hugging somebody that you are not necessarily reconciled with or at peace with, but you're hugging them. Couples do this all the time. They hug, but they're not well with each other.
Sure.
You're going to feel ambivalence
Yeah.
because the hug feels good. And there's also unresolved stuff between you where you feel misunderstood or missed, and that feels yucky. So you're experiencing the agony of ambivalence
Right.
often in
Yeah.
your day.
Adam, what would you say? How do ambivalence has an invitation to it, and it invites us into the story again. How do we short circuit ambivalence versus embracing it?
What do you mean short circuit it?
Well,
Oh, like try and avoid it?
that's right. And so we avoid the tensions in our own heart.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Because and even in marriages, I mean, I mean, it would be hard for, I'm sure for some couples, I've sort of groomed Beth in this language, and so she understands when I say like, I want to be with you, but right now I don't want to be in the same home with you.
Right.
And that's hard
That's
for
right.
couples if you don't understand the
Yeah.
concept of ambivalence.
Right.
Yes.
And so maybe
Yes.
we overemphasize the good, we overemphasize the bad to eliminate the battle that's happening within.
That's perfectly said, Jeff. That's perfectly said. We will try and ignore or deny one pole of that ambivalence so that we don't have to feel the agony of being pulled in two different directions. But the reality is, we are complex human beings. We're complex creatures with big emotions.
Yeah.
And that means we often feel contradictory feelings at the same time. And that's okay.
Yeah. And actually not only is it okay, but it goes back to what you were saying earlier. we have to have that honest conversation with God, but we have to have that honest conversation with ourselves, the reality at hand. And when we can acknowledge
Yes.
the reality at hand and understanding what our parts are feeling, even when they're contradictory, we can actually lead them better. So like when your 9 parts like, I just want to people please and reduce conflict, and your 7's like, no, I want what I want. Those are two competing thoughts. But how does the beloved part of Adam say, hey guys, I totally see how you both are feeling, but this is what we need to do right now. And that's where the power of transformation comes in. So if you aren't having an honest conversation with yourself, then growth can't happen.
That's right. So what you're inviting people to, Beth, right now is so important, and it's just awareness of what is true for you in all of your multiplicities.
Yep.
We are multiplicities. We have parts. There's no such thing as just like this unified atom. There are lots of parts to Adam.
Yeah.
And when I welcome, that's the key word.
Yep.
It's the Old Testament ethic of hospitality. When I welcome at the table all of those parts and listen to all of them, healing starts to take place.
Yep. Yep.
That is an interesting metaphor you just used, because I often speak of having team meetings in the morning. Having been an athlete, it makes sense to me, like who's quarterbacking this, who's the coach, and what are the various parts, and are they in alignment? But welcoming to the table, I would imagine for some that could be a very redemptive metaphor of how can I shepherd everybody and be hospitable to everybody at the table.
Well, it actually goes with what's in our new book, More Than Your Number, our AWARE acronym. So A is awaken. So awaken to what's going on, like be honest. W is welcome. Welcome without shame, guilt, and judgment.
Yes.
A is for ask the Holy Spirit, and ask for truth, like be honest. R is receive the truth. So actually embrace it, even if it's hard. And then E is engage in life in a new way with yourself, others, and God, based on what you've observed and the truth that you now have. And so that's really important for people to be able to do all these steps. But the Enneagram and EIP just brings this sharp clarity. It's kind of like a cheat sheet, like here are your main basic Enneagram parts that are affecting you, and they're going to be ambivalent. I mean, a 9 with a 1 wing and an 8 wing next to it, there's a lot of competing thoughts going on, like the 9's like, you guys don't get it. Like, that's not how we do things, but they are there to assist and help me win following the beloved child. They're going to bring havoc if they're following the wounded child. And so it's important for us to know that.
Well, in the few minutes we have left, why don't you go through the paths and start with type 2?
So type 2 for the type 8s is a path. So this is the line that you're connected to. And again, it can be healthy or unhealthy depending on whether it's following the wounded or the beloved child.
Which is a little bit different from typical Enneagram teaching.
That's right. Yeah. A lot of times, Enneagram 101, it's a lot of people just learn there's a stress path and there's a growth path, but we use both in healthy and unhealthy ways. So the type 2 part for the type 8 is highly relational, friendly, energetic, talkative, and engaging. And they're very compassionate and supportive people. But when they're misaligned and they're trying to protect that wounded child, the things that you might see is that it believes that they have to earn love and affection from others by helping, supporting, and advising them. But they also feel the need to repress their needs and emotions because they fear that this is going to threaten their relationship. So they'll start to begin to kind of suppress all of those and get into action. But the more unhealthy we use the type 2 part of our heart, they actually think the healthier they are, because they're like, oh, but all my intentions are good and right. But other people are signaling a red flag, like, please stop. That's not how I want to receive love. But now when the wounded child is at play, the type 2 part shows up in such beautiful ways where they make other people feel very special and seen and supported. The heart is tender, it's humbly serving. There's no strings attached to what they're giving, so they give generously their time, talents, and their ability to socially connect. So, Adam, how does the type 2 part of your heart show up in both of these ways?
When I'm misaligned with the type 2, I suppress my needs because I assume that voicing them will not make a difference.
Yep.
The other person won't care or respond to me, so why take the risk of putting it out there?
Yeah.
And so I do a two kind of a thing, and I just push it down,
Mm.
Yeah.
and I don't say it, and I don't verbalize it. Sometimes I don't even say it to myself. Like, it happens
Sure.
so,
Wow.
like, unconsciously sometimes.
Right.
So that's misaligned. Aligned, like when I'm aligned with my type 2, as a therapist, as somebody who does a lot of story work, like, the other person can feel incredibly seen and cared for.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, seen like they've never been seen
Yep.
Yes.
when I'm aligned with the 2 in me.
Yeah. That's
Adam, the way that you phrase things whenever you talk about your misaligned self is one of the things that we use in coaching. It almost seems like this wounded part of our hearts has a rule book. That I mean, and I, sometimes they can take the form of vows, but and I know that you've actually talked about that when facing trauma and the role of vows that come out of that. But there are these rules that
Yeah.
that wounded part of us
well,
lives
it's not
by. I
it's
can't
it's
express
not
need.
free to live
Right.
with freedom and joy because we're going to get harmed. We're going to be hurt. These are the things that quote unquote protected me, which we only sabotage ourselves when we're in the wounded part, but it thinks, no, this is what has helped me. And to be fair, the wounded child helped us to survive when we were younger, but it no longer helps us in the way that it tries, in our current state.
When you mentioned the healthy part of the 2 part of your heart, Adam, my heart kind of welled up a bit thinking about the incredible amount of 8 energy and 2 attunement.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
it's like that's superpower stuff that happens
Yes.
in the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Talk
it's
about like you said,
profoundly
talk about
safe.
feeling seen and safe.
Because 8s are very intuitional as well.
Oh, yeah.
And then the 2ness of seeing the other need, and maybe I would imagine at times you're aware of their need even before the counselee is aware
Yeah.
of the need.
Yeah. That's so good. All right. So then the type 5, again, it can come from the wounded and beloved part. Now, type 5s they're very intellectual, they're wise, they're innovative, they're curious, they're observers of the world, they want to know more. But they feel that they're going to be drained of their inner resources and energy, and that people are going to suck probably the emotional reserves right out of them by being intrusive and kind of taking over. So when the wounded part of your heart with the type 5 is leading, you can become fiercely independent and start to build up boundaries to protect yourself from others. And you desire to gain as much knowledge as you can to go from a defensive position into an offensive position. And then you might become more secretive and isolated to protect yourself from possible betrayal or depletion from others. But when the beloved child is at the helm, you can combine your intellectual insights and your intense passion to confidently produce original works that really bless the world. And you're more aware of your inner world and what you need to be able to relax, to recharge, because 8s will push and push and push until physical, literal exhaustion or illness, where the type 5 part is like, hey, Adam, you've gone too far. We need to pull back, refresh, recharge so we can actually bless people more instead of really being depleted. So, Adam, how does the wounded and the beloved child part of the type 5 show up in your life?
The wounded part, I will, when I'm threatened, there are times when I will kind of retreat to gain as much knowledge as I possibly can to make a case for why I'm right, or for why there's injustice here, or why
Sure.
there's something, it's like all of my energy becomes focused on gaining knowledge to prove injustice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very defensive place, and it's hard to breathe, and it's very driven, very driven. And I can create, long documents, heavily researched documents.
Sure.
But it's sad. It's really sad. Now, the flip side, when I'm aligned with my part 5, what happens? The podcast happens.
Yeah.
Right.
My podcast is a great example of me being aligned with my type 5. It's the pairing of intellectual insights with intense passion that produces something that's really helpful to the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I love when you said that, because when I think, so just to let our audience know, we've done podcasts on each other's podcast on trauma and the
Right,
Enneagram.
right.
I think my episode, I could be wrong on yours, was like 3031.
That sounds
It was a
right.
2-part, and I can't remember what it is on ours, so you'll just have to Google it if you want to listen to when it was on our podcast. But why I wanted to bring that up is because you and I spent a lot of time processing a document together, thinking through, okay, how does trauma affect each type? And I remember you saying that was the most effort that you had put at the time into a podcast. And
You're right.
but again, that's your 5: curiosity, wanting to know, to be insightful, to have it right. And to bring that to bless others, with your passion. And so I think it's a perfect example of how that type 5 showed up in such a healthy way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when in the Allender training, it was my first time being exposed to neurobiology and its relationship to trauma. And I can't remember the name of the book. I remember it was red and white, maybe The Science of Love or something about this. But I was so confused. Like, I don't know what in the world I just got myself into. And I just asked you the question, and you articulated with what you just said, both in intellectual and clarity and integrity with passion. Like, your heart lit up telling me about this.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was so helpful. I remember the illustration that both you shared and that was presented in the book became such an interpretive gift. I mean, you've seen me draw out the little dots.
Oh, yeah.
And the H and the A, and that's where that came from.
Well, right before we close this out, what I love to do sometimes is to kind of paint a picture of both the wounded child and the beloved child parts of the types. So the wounded part of the 8, just to paint this picture again, is fearful that others are going to betray and harm them. And so they're going to use these other 4 parts of their heart to protect them. So they're going to bring in the 7 wing that's going to be like, I want what I want and I want it now. And you all just need to get out of the way. The type 9 is like, I better accommodate, people please, hide. Maybe that will work. And then you've got the type 2 that's like, okay, we just need to give and give and give and give and give, because maybe then people will listen or accept me. Maybe I'll gain an alliance and a relationship that won't go sideways. But then the 5 says, no, guys, it's only when we know enough information that we can literally plow over people with our intellect and our strength. And so that's how kind of the misaligned parts, and that's why this is so powerful, because when you see it all happening together, it's so powerful. It's like, oh yeah, this is what's going on, But then the beloved child part, when it knows that it's safe and secure in the strength and the protection of Christ, it can then shift in a whole new way where the 7's like, hey, let's bring some whimsical fun here. Let's bring some joy, some grace, some abundance. That is going to bless others. And then the 9 is like, yeah, you know what? We can offer mediation, accommodation, kindness, patience to others, because the 8s are so fast at just everything they do. So that patience is so important. And the 2 is like, you know what? I have a lot to offer and I'm here to offer it, but I'm going to make sure others actually want it. Instead of plowing over them, I'm going to come with a humble stance of being patient and offering what I think they need, but waiting to see if they actually want to take it. And then the 5 is like, hey guys, we have so much knowledge. This is going to be really helpful when we can see that the path is open for others to learn. And when it's open, let's take that opportunity to bless the world without plowing over them, but plowing a path for them. Does it sound accurate and true for you?
Yes, all true.
And so that's how understanding how our EIP, the parts within us, are operating at any given moment. And the Enneagram gives us that ability to see if we're aligned or misaligned or anywhere in between. It's a spectrum. And how to then surrender and depend on the Holy Spirit to come in and through us to get us back into alignment and to trust him. And it's a continuum. Like every single day, every single moment, we're on this shifting continuum. But he knows. He's not afraid. He's not surprised. He is there. He already has accomplished and is continuing to accomplish who we are in him. And so we can rest in that the finished work is already ours right now. And it's that place of, oh, okay, I can just learn. I can rest in his goodness that changes everything.
Well, Adam, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for all the parts of you that showed up for this hour. And thank you for all the parts of you that show up in the podcast and for your clients. I mean, you are a tremendous gift to us all and helping us to understand our hearts. So we really appreciate you showing up in the way that you did today.
And where can people find you and your work?
AdamYoungCounseling.com. You can access the podcast there or anywhere you get podcasts. Just type in the place we find ourselves, and there's 100+ episodes.
Great.
That are out there.
Man, just hearing that, Adam, I remember my mom, who had undergone a significant amount of abuse from her family, even to them abandoning her to her aunt when she was 13. I remember whenever I first did my first genogram, which was different than Enneagram,
Yes.
and she said this was the first time she's ever told the story to anyone. And number two, her biggest gift was Oprah Winfrey talking about trauma and women's experience.
That's right.
And
absolutely.
I'm grateful now for the many people who are listening. If you haven't listened to Adam's podcast and you've been looking to make sense of your story, I promise you this will be a gift to you and to those around you. It really is something really significant.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. Please share this with all the 8s in your lives. I know that this will really bless them, or people who have 8s in their lives. Please listen and get to know the 8s. They're so misunderstood, but their hearts are so tender and awesome. And really what we've done today is kind of an example of Enneagram coaching. So if you would love to be coached by a certified Enneagram coach, we have so many great certified coaches at myenneagramcoach.com. So go find one there. And also pre-order our book, More Than Your Number, which is releasing September 20th. So go get that book. You will learn so much more about your wounded child, your beloved child, and all the parts that are showing up on a daily basis and how to lead them in a compassionate way.
Then make sure you join us next week, where we'll have the privilege of interviewing the author and pastor, senior pastor of Christ Presbyterian Church here in Nashville, Tennessee. His name is Scott Sauls, and can't wait to talk to him about his new book, Beautiful People Don't Just Happen. And I bet you can hear even his main type throughout this amazing book, even in the title itself. Scott's a type 4. It'll be a special treat for us all to talk through the type 4 EIP. And as always, please remember the Enneagram reveals our need for Jesus, not our need to work harder. It's the gospel that transforms us. Thanks for joining us.